welcome to video 15 of Spiritual Topic Tuesdays. Tonight's topic is the pros and cons of coming out of the closet as a psychic or a medium. As usual, we have a lineup of spiritual people that are ready to break down the topic and give their perspectives. Before we get started, let me remind everybody that each person's contact info is at the end of the video. So if somebody resonates with you and you want to reach out to them, you have that ability. As well, it's our goal to provide, different perspectives in hopes that somebody out there looking for answers will be able to find at least one that resonates with them. So without further ado, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Randy Sands. I'm a psychic, an animal communicator, a medium, a tarot reader, a numerologist, and teacher of all the above. Mike, would you like to take the lead and run with it?
Sure. My name is Michael Robert. I'm the founder of digitalsoulspace.org. I'm a psychic medium, a oracle card reader, and a blogger, podcaster, and someone who's fascinated with metaphysical world.
Okay, I'm Sarah Sachs. I'm a medium, psychic, Reiki master. I read tarot cards. I teach workshops, and I also have a channel on YouTube, Sarah Sachs Medium on the Go channel, and I mostly do tarot readings for current events.
Go sign up for it.
Oh, good. So be sure.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Okay. I'm Chris Colin Kern. I'm an intuitive empath. I do a lot of different kinds of readings, tarot, oracle cards. I work with intuitive health readings. I do some of the mediumship and psychic readings. I'm also an animal communicator and an animal healer, and I work a lot with animals, and I am just finishing up my program in vet tech, and middle of May, I'll be done, and I'll be on my way to being a professional certified vet tech.
And she starts her internship.
Yay!
This week.
On the 8th.
Boom.
On the 1st. Sorry, on the 1st.
Oh, on the 1st. Okay.
Yeah. The
I'm
8th
jumping
is
the gun, just a hair.
Right? Well, that's Monday. Monday's the 1st.
Oh,
it's coming. It's a point, so you better be ready. You're ready to rock and roll. My name's Leanne Capistano. I am in Rochester, New York. By day, I own a dog grooming salon. I work with the harder to handle, better they are. By night, I'm a psychic medium and animal communicator. And I also run one of the largest paranormal investigation teams here in New York State.
All right. That's all of us. Mike, would you like to get us started with the topic, the pros or cons of coming out of the closet as a psychic or medium or animal communicator?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the best advice, first of all, or the pro, or whatever you want to call it, is to know your audience. I'm pretty fortunate here in Miami, Florida. While there is a strong Latino Catholic population here, Latinos love psychic mediums and astrologers, and you just have to look towards Walter Mercado, who, God rest his soul, that he was on every single night, and every Latino practically in the world just love Walter Mercado, and his predictions, and I actually know one of his best friends, which is pretty amazing. That just kind of happened on its own. In alignment with that, you have to know the people that you're talking to. And for me, coming out spiritually, I found out there was no gray area. It seemed either people were really happy to hear that, and they were like, "Oh, I have to get a reading from you," or they were like, literally, and I'm not how do you say it? I'm not making this more colorful, but I literally had two people just go like this to me, like you're nuts, you're absolutely nuts. And so it all depends on the people you're speaking with. A lot of times in the beginning, when I was first coming out spiritually, I grew up in a paranormal household. And while my mother was very much into the paranormal and everything like that, she was really concerned for me. She's like, this is something, it's scary. It's going to be scary for you. Do you really want to take on the responsibility of it? Do you really want to take on what comes along with it? It's not a good thing to know everything, or because there's a lot of misconceptions that go along with being a psychic medium and things like that. I think we can all say we hate it when people say, well, you should have saw that coming, right? Like if somehow psychic mediums are exempt from life experience in general and the learning process that we all signed up for to come to this planet. So I think those are the pros are you can foster some pretty interesting relationships. The pros are that you can really help a lot of people that are going through trauma or just need someone to talk to. I found out during readings, people really were opening up to me and saying things to me that actually I was taken back. I was like, wow, people were very honest with you and very open with you. And I realized, and they really trust you. And so I always make it a point to tell people, what we talk about in this space is private. It's between just, you and myself. And that's one of the pros. I think that's the biggest pro, is that seeing when you can help someone, seeing when you can see somebody recover from the loss of a loved one. I had somebody tell me that after I was just booking an appointment with them and suddenly we were going crazy texting. I was getting messages as booking the appointment. That seems to be a weird thing that happens to me a lot. As I book the appointment, I start getting messages. And when I reached out to her, she was smiling ear to ear when we finally did the reading. And I said, wow, you look really great, because she had told me she was very stressed out. And she said to me, well, since we had our exchange, I'm so much at peace. So it's that kind of rewarding thing. Those are the pros. The cons are just, normal Salem witchcraft, witch hunt sort of thing, being ostracized from certain members of your family. And sometimes that's a good thing. I have to say that I took great pride this Christmas, and when I was getting bombarded with texts from a certain family member that were very very charismatic in nature, that I was like, Happy Yule, instead of the Merry Christmas was the Happy Yule. And that she stopped texting me. so there's the pros and the cons, as that's the whole reason we're all here tonight. But the pros are really, for me, is helping people and fostering some amazing friendships and relationships, and seeing those people come back. Like, they don't just have one reading from you. And when you see them come back, you get that amazing sense of validation, right? That, wow, I actually did something good. And then the cons, like I said, just people turning away from you, people saying you're crazy. But I think that's all outweighed by the pros for me personally.
Okay. Yes, it's interesting. Oh, and I have to tell you, I love Walter Mercado. I loved how we would end con mucho, mucho, mucho amor. He was wonderful, and nice to learn astrology in Spanish too. But at any rate, yeah, and I was turned on to him like so many years ago. It isn't even funny. But at any rate, as far as my close friends and family, it kind of evolved as I evolved into it, into my mediumship. It was from staying at Lilydale. So my Pittsburgh family members and my Chautauqua family members, after a couple of years, kind of got the picture that was the kind of the path that I was wandering. So I wasn't any like big sudden thing. And I guess with when I used to work, they got a pretty good idea when I was turning down too many banquet shifts at the Sheridan for going to psychic fairs and doing psychic parties. They pretty much got the idea. Most of those people, like all these kind, you would usually think like, oh, these mostly Catholic, union types of people will think that this is so terrible, but actually most of them think it's really neat. And so, some of them have been wanting readings and that sort of thing. I don't think I've had too many negative. I mean, you get a certain amount of negative reactions, but I remember one Passover, and this is different. Like they're going to really love you or really hate you. But I remember one Passover years ago at the temple. So I'd sit at a table and I would know, like nobody except maybe one person, my friend Richard. And they'd say, well, what do you do? And I'd be honest. And if they ask me, I'll be honest. I'm not like telling everybody, oh, I'm a medium and psychic. So they asked me and I told them, and it was like they spent practically the whole meal picking my brains, like, what is it like? How do you feel? How did you know this, that, and the other thing? To the point where I thought, now what do you, I don't know. They said, no, 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 you're not going to get out of it that easily. So it was kind of a lot of fun. And there is a part of the Seder where they open the door for the ghost of the prophet Elijah, and they'll leave a glass of wine on the table, the extra one in the middle for him to drink. So it was a joke that Richard and I had going. And when the rabbi would say, oh, do we have any of the kids who would like to go and open the door for Elijah? And Richard would elbow me and say, they should pick you to do that. that sort of
Usher in
thing.
the ghost.
That would be kind of the Passover joke. But I found that that people that I guess I have enough intuition that I pretty much knew sort of like the real hardcore fundy types who I knew wouldn't like it, that I figured out it was none of their business. I really don't need to tell them. So I haven't come across the, oh, you're evil kind of a thing. But I will say, the first time I traveled over to the UK to take the course, I was asked, I thought, whoa, it's a different ball game with all these customs people asking, what is your purpose here and what are you doing? So I thought, I'll just tell them I'm a tourist, because I didn't want to get into it. And I thought, I don't need to give them any more information. So at the school, an American woman who's been living in Germany, said they grilled her when she came into the UK and said, they said, what's your purpose for your visit? And she said, oh, I'm going to the Arthur Findlay School for a week. And they said, what's that for? And she said, to study mediumship. And then the customs person wanted her to bring through her mother.
Wow.
And then I said, oh, now I know that's why I don't do that. So but I'm pretty much of a if I'm with the like-minded people, then of course I tell them. If I'm with a bunch of civilians, and most of them know already because it's on my Facebook profile and everything. But I'm pretty much I think that as far as the downside goes of telling people, I believe that your intuition will tell you and be right like 90% of the time. That that person isn't going to feel that it's very cool. And that in that respect, I am not, and I think I've said this before, I'm really not going to try to prove to anybody or convince anybody that, because it was hard enough for me to believe that this was real myself. So, or I don't want to hear them crap about the devil and all this stuff. So, I think my intuition is my guide in what I say and what I don't say. But just dealing with the general life, I feel if they ask me, I'll tell them. But I have other interests, which I think if you have other interests in life, that makes you a better psychic and a medium. So I
Mhm.
have other things to talk about with people in my everyday life. So, and I kind of, it's kind of nice to get away from that. So if they ask me, I'll tell them, but if they don't, I don't feel like I need to volunteer that. So I think it really boils down to your intuition as to whether you're going to think it's cool or it isn't. So that's it from me.
Okay.
Okay, so I call myself an intuitive empath, which kind of incorporates a lot of different things, including psychic mediumship. Um, and what Sarah was just saying about the intuition, about knowing who you can trust and who you can't, or who will respond and who won't to what you have to say, is very true. There are some people, even if I know them casually, I know that I can say something about mediumship or, seeing spirit or talking to spirit, and I know that they won't freak out. There are others that I know I cannot open my mouth because it will be a bad scene. Um, I had, and I know Lee's probably going to say something similar. I had an issue with members of my family when I finally came out of the closet with my abilities and started doing actual readings and getting paid for what I did. Um, my brother in particular is very against any of this stuff. He doesn't believe in it. He's a scientist, and science says this doesn't exist. And when I told him what I was doing, when I said, "Hey, I'm trying to make some money. I'm trying to do this. Um, I'm also trying to help people," and that was my main motive. But I said, I'm starting to charge because I'm doing it on a regular basis. And he said, "Oh, that's the worst thing you could do in the world." He said, "No one will ever hire you for any job ever again, and you will lose your entire reputation." And I mean, he gave me a lecture, a 20-minute lecture standing in my garage about how this was bad for me. And that was a pretty big con, that here was my only sibling who was telling me basically, "I won't have anything to do with you if you do this stuff." But the pro is, this is who I am. And if I don't embrace who I am and do the things that make me who I am, then I'm not being true to myself. And I figure if there are people who can't accept who I really am, then they don't belong in my life. You can't please everybody, but most importantly, you have to please your heart, right? You have to do what you are supposed to be doing. And this is, I think, very much my purpose here is working with people, working with animals, and trying to bring them some peace, some comfort, um, some answers, and help them make the best of their own lives, because I can give them an insight that they haven't seen. Doesn't mean they don't have it, they just haven't recognized it. So, while I do think there are a lot of cons with certain individuals, mostly I think responding out of fear of the unknown, like my brother, um, I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons, just like Mike said.
I absolutely agree with everything that everybody else has said. When I first started on this path, which I honestly don't believe that you choose it, it chooses you. But it's not for the weak. You're going to be tested and everything else. And you have to know that, because the journey is up and down and up and down. And what might be a pro today is a con tomorrow. And it just, it's all about evolving. Um, the biggest pro I have met through all of this, through the paranormal stuff, through being a psychic medium, everything, even the animal communicator, is just, I have met some of the absolutely like coolest, most awesome people, and that are still in my life, a huge part of my life. Some obviously in this group here too. You know, I mean, that I can't imagine where I would be right now just
Mhm.
without them talking me off a cliff every other day. Um, but really what it comes down to for me is I do it because it gives me an opportunity to help others. And that's no matter what I'm doing, I just, that's my comfort zone, is helping others. And so I think that's the biggest pro that I've come across. Um, the con, you know, it was a big one for me. You know, it very well can cost you relationships with friends, family. I still, to this day, I kind of keep my dog grooming business separate from my, you know, my paranormal stuff and the other thing, because you sometimes you just don't know. I mean, you can kind of go with your senses, but sometimes you don't know how somebody's going to respond. So, you know, it can be two very different worlds. Um,
Oh, she froze.
You
Oh,
think?
She froze.
Oh, she's probably gonna have to come back in.
Maybe she forgot to disable call waiting. Do you remember, do you remember that?
Well, I'll go
Back in the
ahead and
days of modems, you used to have to disable call waiting. But
I'll,
Oh,
anyway.
yeah.
I never knew
Yeah.
that. I
I'll
never
go
knew
ahead
that.
and I'll go ahead and get started while we're waiting for her. And this has been a, oh, here she comes. This has been a time because my cats have been acting up, dropping everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently we're almost in a retrograde because I told you technology hates me, guys. Um, but quickly here, basically what I wanted to say as far as the cons go is that you're always going to have to deal with the non-supportive or skeptics, and it can cost you relationships with your friends and your family. Unfortunately, it cost me pretty much my almost my entire family. I don't have a relationship at this point with my sister at all. I don't have a relationship with my brother. Um, you know, I do have a couple random family members that are okay with it. My dad was raised very Catholic, so it just doesn't make sense to them. And it when it comes to that stuff, I've learned that it comes down to setting boundaries and demand that your boundaries are respected. And if people can't do that, then you know what, maybe it's okay. It's okay that they're not a part of your life. So, Miss Randy.
Okay. Time to speak words of wisdom. Yeah. We'll give that a whirl.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the pros are rewarding. The cons can be challenging. It's awesome to see the look on people's faces when you give them evidence that you've made a connection with their loved one that there is no way you could have known. You know, regardless of coming from a spiritual family, um, my immediate family doesn't have any spiritual practices whatsoever. As a matter of fact, my mother has out and out said to me that she doesn't have a spiritual cell in her entire body.
Nice.
So, you know, it's not easy because sometimes it almost feels like I'm an alien that was dropped into a family that I didn't fit into. Yet the interesting thing is my sister had a friend that was a medium, and that was viewed differently. Why? Because it wasn't her sister, you know? Um, you know, it's because that's what people do to those that are closest to them. And, you know, I probably could become as well known as the Long Island medium, and it wouldn't change anything in their perspective at all. Um, you know, it just wouldn't. And as far as, you know, the rest of the cons, I wish I could say that I'm as nice as everyone else here. I can't. Um, when people ask me what I do, I love it. I love it. My first reaction is, oh, here we go. And it preps them because they usually, once I tell them, will um, contain themselves because I already prefaced it. And the ones that do have a strong reaction or a negative reaction, like nobody's going to do like this to me, because I would be the first one to tell them, really, which one of us is actually the crazy one? Because, you know, every religion that I can think about talks about eternal life. And how crazy must you be to think that God would be so cruel to rip your loved ones away with no opportunity of communicating, especially when there's prophecy throughout the whole Bible? So which one of us is really the crazy one? You know, um, the pros are so rewarding. It's so rewarding. I get to watch people start healing right in front of my eyes. And it's not because of me, because I could be as good a medium as I would like to be. But if spirit does not step in and participate,
Mhm.
I don't have diddly. That's why we're called mediums, not smalls or larges,
Right.
you know. So the other con is once on our side is that once we get a following and you're judged on your accuracy, it's very easy to allow your ego to get out of bounds, and you truly have to check yourself. I tell all my people around me, if you ever see me acting out of bounds, please tell me immediately, because I'm on the inside looking out, not the outside looking in. And I need everybody's help to make sure that I don't do that. That is not who I want to be, you know, because we have to remember we are the medium. We're just a middle person. That's all we are. And with that, that's all I have. Does anybody have anything else they would like to add to that?
That's what I tell, oh, that's
Go
what I
ahead,
tell my
Christine.
clients is that I'm just the messenger, right? So I don't have to understand what it means as long as it makes sense to them, right? Because sometimes it's something between the spirit and the client, and I don't need to know. I don't need to be privy to it. So I will see something sometimes and I'll say, does this rocking chair mean something to you? And then, then that's the evidence obviously that comes through, and I don't have to press them for what it means to them. I just know that it means something to them. So yeah, that definitely is one of the pros, is being able to be that conduit, that medium for them and their loved ones.
I have to add that what Leanne said in regards to maybe you really don't need those people in your life. It is so true. I ended a 20-year friendship, if you can call it that, with somebody a little over a year ago, and they were highly abusive in the sense of constantly pushing my buttons. But the thing that drove me over the edge was they showed me this video on YouTube, and they said, this reminds me of Michael. And there's a children's book called it's I think it's marketed as a joke, but it's called Mama Killed Pop-Up. And it's about Pop-Up. The grandfather got cancer, and he was supposed to get chemotherapy and everything, but Mama insisted on using crystals only. And it was just such a stereotype and so horrible. And I finally said to him, you're done. You're done in my life, because you know how important my practice is to me. You know how important my spirituality is to me. And if you can't honor that, and if you do, what Leanne said about, I'm sorry, what Christine said about her brother in her garage.
Mm-hmm.
I had a similar experience where that friend in my house was like at my altar of Lakshmi saying to me, this is all bullshit, right?
Yeah.
No, no. People need to respect you as much as they would a traditional religion or spirituality or practice or modality, whatever it is. And you need to love yourself enough to set those boundaries. So I really commend Leanne because I know it's not easy, and I commend Christine as well because it's not easy when you have to sever ties with your own family members or put up a wall. You're not supposed to have to put up those walls for your families and your close friends. But for my friend, that was it. That was the thing that pushed me over the end. And I said, I'm sorry, no more. I've put up with your shit for 20 years. I'm done. You can't just insult things and hit me in places that have brought me so much joy and so much peace in my life. A big, middle finger to you. And that was it. And you know what? In a way, it makes complete sense, right? Because it was my spirituality that saved me from further pain from this person. And that's what it's supposed to do, right?
Right. Yeah. Good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
You know
Very
what's
good
even
point.
worse? Is when you have other spiritual people. Because not all spiritual people are very nice.
No. Mm-mm.
Some are very, very ruthless.
You know who taught me that? Who I didn't, well, I kind of learned it myself, but who took it a step further was a very famous comedian, Brett Butler, who used to have her own TV show on ABC. And she gave me a reading, and then she mentored me for a couple of months. And she said to me, she goes, she had she wouldn't mention their name, but she says, there's psychics out there and stuff, and don't assume that just because they're gifted that they're nice.
Mm-mm.
She goes, yeah. So she had a really bad experience with someone who was a really good friend of hers. So yeah, not and like I said, she said, I'm not going to give you their name or whatever, but she was the one who really gave me a heads up about that and validated an experience I had already had just about a few years before. So yeah, totally agree. This doesn't mean anything other than you're connected.
Call me a slow learner. I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yes, I know what you mean, and and in fact, I've been in the last few years, I've been kind of appalled at how many of those are out there. That they're very, very skilled, but I'm saying there's something lacking in their spirituality, and that just because someone's a psychic and a medium, that does not mean that they're on a great path. Because I did a little bit of digging into history because I love history, and I found out that in 1930s Germany, when Hitler was starting to kind, fascism was starting to be on the rise, that there were a group of psychics and astrologers who were kind of latching on to that because they worshipped some Norse god, and and that what Hitler said about the perfect race and all that, that really resonated. And there were a number of them who were very skilled and who gave Hitler advice, like the astrologer who told him not to go into Russia in the winter, and
Right.
he went into Russia in the winter and learned the hard way. So sometimes people that are very skilled they just get on the wrong path. I don't know how that happens, if it's something that comes through the family or they just love authoritarian, whatever toxic thing it is that they're into. But I consider myself fortunate with listening to everybody tonight, is that I'm very grateful, because as crazy as a lot of them were, in other respects, I really didn't have much of a problem with the family rejecting me, because even the more conservative ones, like my mother's side of the family that grew up in Chautauqua County, I mean, they went to Lilydale. That was, I mean, they would go to Lilydale, And I came to learn that from very, very long ago, it goes back to Lucille Ball and before, is that a rite of passage for these young women who are getting out of school and want to know what to do. They would pile in a car, go to Lilydale and either get a reading or get a message. And that was kind of like the rite. They may not have done it that often. I suspect my mother did too, and they told her to get out of, go to New York City, which she did. But so I've been fortunate in that there is a familiarity, and I've seen, I disagree with a lot of people in that area on a lot of things. But as far as that goes, I mean, people are considering it as kind of a provincial, rural, and poverty stricken area, that people are actually open to that. So I never had, and the Pittsburgh relatives were kind of like liberal minded, live and let live, we don't care sorts of people. So I was very fortunate, and listening to these stories, I have to feel grateful that at least I didn't go through that. And
On the pro side, when I met my husband and he found out that I had this side to me, that I talked to the dead, it got to the point where we'd be sitting in a new place and he'd say, "Do you see any spirits? Anybody here?" So when the right people are in your life, you know it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's right.
Yes, and I have to say that I would not be with my current partner if it weren't for what I do, because he does something very similar, and he felt that he was completely alone. And it's easy to find, and I hope this doesn't sound sexist, but it's easy to find women who are into the psychic medium realm, metaphysics. It's a lot easier to find women. In fact, even on the social site that I run, I think it's 75% of our members are women. So to find another man that's into the same thing I am, and it's an amazing thing as a pro, that we wake up every morning and we show each other our tarot cards. Oh, look what I pulled today. What's your card of the day? And that's wonderful. I love that.
Well, all you have to do is go, stroll around the grounds of Lilydale, and you will see the vast majority of women, and you'll see some men that are tuned into it, and then others that are like, I wish were on the golf course right in Cassadaga, right outside the gates. But so it is funny because you go, and you go to schools like Arthur Fit in Europe. There's overseas, there are a few more guys proportionately than there are in the States, but still women are the majority at those schools overseas too. But it's interesting. But I would say the trend is that more men are kind of getting into it. That's been the trend, which is very nice.
I think so too. All right, are we ready to close out?
So,
So again, it's our sincere hope that you found at least one perspective that resonated with you. Please know that we are all honored and privileged that you've chosen to spend, your valuable time with us. And if you have any particular spiritual topic that you would like us to cover, please let us know and we'll put it into our schedule. And I know that everybody would like to say goodnight, guys.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
May you have a week as amazing as you. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.